Hi, welcome to the first episode of Dark Heritage Project in Quarantine. Today we'll be taking a closer look to pandemics over the years. Because for many of us, this COVID crisis is the first pandemic that we are facing. And where else to look but in the past? It's been all over the news these past months, but I'll give you the explanation one last time. If we take a closer look to the word demic, this is derived from the Greek word demos. Demos means people of a district. Think of democracy, for example. Epidemic. An epidemic disease, I'm taking it straight from the dictionary now, is affecting many persons at the same time and spreading from person to person in a locality where the disease is not permanently prevalent. Compared to an epidemic disease, a pandemic disease is an epidemic that has spread over a large area, that is, it's prevalent throughout an entire country, continent, or the whole world. The word pandemic is also derived from Greek, the word pandemos, which means common or public. Disease and illnesses have tormented humanity since the early days. Humans became more and more civilized, with larger cities and exotic trade routes. The contact with different populations of people and animals were opportunities for epidemics to occur. Take influenza, for example, or smallpox. Let's begin with the Justinian plague, which affected nearly half the population of Europe. Back then, many societies believed that the gods and spirits inflicted disease upon those who deserved their fury. However, it was a Byzantine historian that traced the origins of this plague to China and northeast India, reaching the Byzantine Empire through land and sea routes to Egypt. Nevertheless, he blamed the outbreak on the Emperor Justinian, calling it God's punishment for his evil ways. Justinian plague was bubonic, a type of plague that was later found upon DNA analysis on bones found in graves. For example, the famous Black Death from the 14th century was also a bubonic plague. It wasn't until decades later, in 1894, that the plague was discovered by Yersin during an epidemic of the plague in Hong Kong. Now we also know that the plague originated in rats and spread to humans via infected fleas. So let's talk about quarantine. Apparently it's not a new thing. The practice of it began during the 14th century. It was an effort to protect cities, coastal cities, from plague epidemics. Ships arriving in Venice that came from infected ports had to sit at anchor for 40 days before landing. They called it 40 giorni. Quarantine 40. Also, social distancing is not a new thing. 100 years ago, the Spanish influenza pandemic proved the benefits of social distancing. A case popped up in St. Louis, then the fourth largest city of the United States. 2 days later, the city had shut down most public gatherings and quarantined victims in their homes. The cases slowed. It resulted in a low death rate. For the first example of relying on geography and statistical analysis, I'm taking you back to mid-19th century London. During a cholera outbreak, Dr. John Snow, no, not that one, this one, he discovered that cholera was spreading via tainted water instead of particles in the air, known as miasma, and decided to display neighborhood mortality data on a map. His method revealed a bunch of cases around a specific pump which people were getting the water from. Tracking the infectious helps with curbing the spread. Here we see that measles is one of the most contagious diseases. A single person with the disease can infect 12 to 18 people in an unvaccinated population. For COVID-19, this is estimated at 2.5 persons. Since the 1960s, a vaccine became available for the measles, together with mumps and rubella, which resulted in a decline of outbreaks. Through the years, disease and pandemics persisted, but thanks to healthcare improvements and understanding the factors that incubate pandemics, the death rate reduced over time little by little. Only time can tell what the true impact of COVID-19 will be. I want to thank you all for watching. For the next episode, you will be able to choose the subject. And you can choose for either the Spanish flu or the Black Death.